Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of statewide news service, jbiztechphilly.com, and now columnist for the Jewish Press.
And I talk about how government relates to the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be, when I write my column called Albany Beat. And I'm having a lot of fun doing all of these assignments. And with us today, someone who really does relate to the Jewish community locally, who's in government, is View-Darius, the treasurer of the city of Albany, the money guy.
The money guy. Well, there's not a lot of money guy.
Well, welcome back.
It would be laid out all the money in front of us.
Yeah, see, that's it. We got nothing.
I got change.
That's it. Well, you know, there was this 8-year-old girl who said, you know, I like President Obama. Her father says, why? I mean, you're only 8 years old. Well, he's for change, and I collect change.
We need to do a little bit of that in the city, I think.
So anyway, welcome back to
Well,
the
thank you.
Jewish
It's good
View.
to be back. Good to be back.
And I hope you enjoy our new set.
Absolutely, it's terrific. I love to see Samson's
feel
work
right
here.
at home over here.
Yeah,
You're
this
right in Albany City
you got me
Hall.
right in front of City Hall.
That's right.
This is where I should be. So
You got it. So tell us about what's been going on recently in terms of the finances in the city. Make it as exciting as possible.
make it. Now that's a steep challenge. I thought digging ourselves out of the financial hole was a steep challenge, but to make finance exciting, that's a whole other set of challenges. Well, I guess for this year, so far, so good. We are slightly ahead of budget expectations for this year overall. We still are in the situation I think that we've been in for the last several years, where we have a structural revenue deficit in the city.
Of how much?
Well,
That's the key.
It's a 12 to $15 million range right now. The mayor the mayor had asked the state, and the state put in $12.5 million essentially spin up last year for this year's budget, which is keeping us going. And that I understand is being asked for from the state again in some way, shape, manner, or form for next year's budget. And that will be a crucial component for our fiscal health going forward.
How did the city get into such a hole? I mean, I didn't follow it that well, I'm sure, as Mark, as the reporter does. But, you know, all of a sudden, we're $18 million in the hole. I mean, you don't get to that overnight.
We've been in a $10 million hole for probably 10 years or so.
Really?
And what Mayor Jennings did successfully for the most part was to lobby the state on a yearly basis for precisely the kind of spin up that the state provided the city in this year's budget. The state had grown tired of that, I think, after several years, and basically said that it was going to stop doing that. And so we didn't have any additional revenue from spin up in 2014 and 2015. And that's when the revenue deficit becomes apparent. I think Mayor Jennings had basically used $10 million in fund balance to balance the 14. Fund balance is essentially the money we have in our account. I don't call it a rainy day fund because we don't have a separate rainy day fund. It's like the money you have left over in your bank account. Well, we budgeted to use that in 2014, and we did. We thought we were going to come in using only about 8 million, but it ended up being about 10. And then we had other stopgap measures in the 2015 budget from the mayor, including direct state aid. We had a sale of a property that unfortunately still has not gone through yet, and other mechanisms to balance. But
there is justification to ask for funding. It's almost like a rabbi; you have to ask for donations. But there is justification for it because the Empire State Plaza,
absolutely,
they knocked down so many businesses and homes,
right?
And that would have been tax revenue. So they took over real, taxable property.
Yeah, and it's been a particular problem for the city, and it all goes back to the plaza. Our financial difficulties, the financial straits that we're in, really all go back to the plaza. The plaza actually does more or less pay for itself because that's the source of the 19A money for the city.
No one knows what 19A means.
Exactly, which is the pilot for the city that the state pays.
Payments
for
in
the
lieu
city,
of
payment
taxes.
in lieu of taxes. Thank you for making me speak English. The payment in lieu of taxes. So the state pays us for this tax-exempt property that is the Empire State Plaza.
Right.
The state pays us. Now it's $15 million a year. Before it was $22 million a year. With the spin-up money that we referenced before, that actually made the payment for that piece of property $27.5 million this year.
Okay.
So that's done well for us this year. The problem is that the state owns a lot of other property in the city as well as other nonprofits. They own
Right.
a lot of property in the city that they don't pay taxes for. So about more than 60% of our tax base is tax exempt. So they're not paying taxes on the property that they own. Harriman
This-
campus,
yeah.
SUNY,
But there's
the hospitals.
60% of the
60% of all
property
property.
is tax exempt.
Yes.
And it used to be, when they're Corning, 80%. So we're doing better.
I don't know.
According to the Corning, when I was
according
covering him, he said it was 80%.
I'm not quite sure how it got to that stage, and how that changed.
Well,
but,
there were fewer churches now, and there's more business, and there's other things that have changed economically in the city.
Yeah, I would think so.
so-
That seems like a pretty large number.
Oh,
to,
it was.
to
You should have seen
where that was.
when we went to the Conference of Mayors
Mm-hmm.
sessions and all that. I mean, it was really hilarious how everyone would
We're
just
talking
look
about
at how do you,
long ago, you mean?
how do you live in a city
Well-
where 20% of the taxpayers
Right.
or property
Yeah,
owners
absolutely.
pay for 100%
well,
of them.
obviously it's quite difficult, and it continues to be quite difficult. And it also goes back, it's a historical problem that came with the Empire State Plaza, where even though they cleared out that section of the city and made that property tax exempt, even though they were paying a payment in lieu of taxes for it, normally what would happen is those people would be dispersed outside the city, and all of a sudden that tax base is completely gone. But in that diaspora, a lot of exactly, a lot of those folks ended up living in the city of Albany,
Right.
and thus increasing the tax base in the
Right.
places they went to live, such as Pine Hill, such as around Eagle Point.
And not just that, out by New Scotland Avenue
Yes.
used to be Bethlehem, the town of
Exactly.
Bethlehem that ceded a lot of property to Albany.
I think the other side of the Norman scale.
Right,
Yep.
because there was something about no water from Bethlehem, and they wanted the water from Albany, and they said, and the city was willing to do that because it would increase the tax base, and Bethlehem,
Yep.
I guess at a
Lot-
weak
lo-
moment,
lots of
agreed to
little-
it. Or,
Lots of little small things like that, not so small, but a lot
but
of
that's,
arrangements like that.
that's
help
why the
bring it back.
city's the map of
Yeah.
the city looks so weird.
Right,
also.
yeah, exactly. And the panhandle too, actually.
Right, on Washington Avenue
down Washington
Extension.
Avenue Extension, yeah.
That also
Yeah.
came because, so we gained some extra.
That may be the explanation for it, actually. Acquired territory from Corning's time to
Right,
now
right.
probably explains that spread
Right.
of 60 to 80%. Yeah.
Right. So we didn't have any spin-up of 2014 and 2015.
Right.
But we had in 2016.
2016 is
Right.
the 12.5 million that
Right.
that is
we
that is
got,
effectively
okay.
the spin up that
Now,
comes up our back end.
There
of
are
the
some
payments.
people who claim we have an $18 million deficit, but you said it's between 12 and 15 million.
That's the operating revenue deficit, but it really is in that range there, and it depends year to year because we also have other things that come up. We have
Is 18 million accurate as an outside number?
as an outside number, I would say, yeah, that's something that is a fairly accurate number as an outside number. It depends
Okay.
on what. It depends on how you look at it.
And who's saying it?
Well,
Politically, who's saying it?
not so much. It really depends on how
Okay.
you're looking at it.
Okay.
So what you actually include in that. So.
Okay, so we have this structural deficit, and we've had it for many years, and we just don't know how to resolve this situation. We just are.
You know, I think we know how to resolve the situation in the city of Albany because
Yeah.
the state is the one that really has to come up with the money to
How would
deal
you
with that.
how would you resolve the situation in the city of Albany if you had your magic wand to wave?
The two things I would do is get a pilot on Harriman and I'd take down 787.
Okay,
There's my magic wand.
you would take down 787.
Take down 787
Why?
and-
Build condos on the river.
You have a mass of prime real estate in Albany that's used for a road that has done nothing but divide and demolish our city. You take that out, you now have a waterfront, and we can reconnect to a waterfront in the city of Albany, which has spurred development all over the country in cities small to large.
Right, but-
Baltimore, Providence,
Right.
you know,
New York
whatever.
City,
New
East
York
River,
City.
the East River,
Yep.
the West
Yep.
Side, but that's a 20-year
Oh, absolutely.
realization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
You said you wanted the magic wand answer.
That's right. And the magic wand would be 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably.
But the Harriman campus could be revived
Right.
or repurposed in 5 years, let's say.
I personally, I think we should have a pilot on the Harriman campus right now. And that's something I think has
A
been
pilot?
A pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes.
payment of
on-
taxes.
yeah.
I thought you said you wanted to demolish all of it and rebuild it for a
No, I would.
commercial purpose.
I would prefer to see that be used for commercial purpose, that's for sure. But a pilot on the a payment in lieu of taxes on the Harriman campus, which actually was passed by the legislature in 2009, but vetoed by Governor Patterson 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
Okay.
So that would have gone a long way to solve the problems. The reality is, the other part of the coin for us is, just besides the property that is tax exempt in the city of Albany, is that the level of state aid that we get compared to other cities in upstate New York is paltry. And when you start your argument with, if the state would just treat us like Utica, where I grew up, you know we're not being treated the way we probably should be.
Well, you don't want to compare yourself to Utica in this day and age.
Utica gets double the per capita state aid that we do. But Rochester, Syracuse, and Buffalo get 4 to 6 times the per capita state aid.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah, and it's a holdover from, again, the 1960s and how state aid was apportioned then, and how the formulas changed going forward.
Right.
And that doesn't even get into how the state doesn't treat us as well as
So we
could on
need
school taxes.
So we need someone from the city of Albany to be elected governor in order to change that dynamic.
Well, I suppose that might be one way to do it. We would, I think,
We've only had one
with
governor from the city of Albany, Martin Glynn.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
What year was that?
Early 1900s.
A long time ago.
100 years ago.
A long time ago. I think it's more, it's the hard work of actually getting, the problem for years has been when the problem was explained to legislators in the Capitol, they really didn't buy it. They say, you just want to spend all this money over here, you just want money from us so you can spend money over there. Over the last, particularly a couple of years, I think the legislators in the state have really gotten a full understanding, in large part to Mayor Sheehan's personal lobbying there, of the extent of the problems and how deeply they really affect us. And a lot of it was spurred by a report that was done, that was actually funded by the city in 2010 called Capital Punishment, which really outlines all the real problems that we've had in the city of Albany. Financially, especially compared to the rest of the state, and that's where I get the figures from. On
Who
Utica,
did the
Buffalo,
report? Capital punishment.
I can get you that information. They're actually working on an audit right now in the city that the state is paying for to look at our finances again in a lot of the same vein.
Right.
To see, well, what other options are there out there that the city hasn't taken that can take to really fix its problems.
So how has the employment, how has the number of employees changed in the city of Albany in the past few years?
I don't have the precise figures, but what I can say is that has been the way that
has it gone on the downside? Has it increased?
It's on the downslope. The employment in the city has been on the downslope.
Are there
for
fewer
years.
people earning more money than before? I mean,
I haven't
why
taken a look
can't
at
we
that,
slash and burn the budget, cut everything that we can cut
That's
to balance it?
That is what I think Mayor Jennings have been doing. That's what this administration has been doing, and they've done it largely with attrition. Because I think you have to realize, as I think you probably will know, that 75% of most municipalities' budget is for labor and labor costs, or labor value, as I like to look at it. The other 25% is for operations. That's for your roads, what have you.
Well, then the healthcare costs also.
That's included in the labor cost.
Oh,
yeah, that's
okay.
because we have to pay the healthcare for that. And so single payer healthcare is another issue. I'll come back to talk to you on another day, because if we had single payer healthcare, that would save us. That would get us out of our financial hole.
Also.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's another way.
That by itself would do it.
Have you done these studies yourself, or have you just read other people's
What studies?
on, let's say, single-payer health?
I've taken a look at that myself and how it would affect
You did
the
that?
city. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did it myself. I testified in front of the legislative committees.
The health committee?
Assemblyman Gottfried,
Yeah.
the prime pusher of the bill for 20 years.
Right.
Sisyphus rolling the stone up the hill.
Well, look, he's done it with a lot of other bills. He's been there
Absolutely.
45 years. We had him
Yep.
on the show. It was like,
Terrific guy. And the work is starting to bear a little bit of fruit now, I think. There's starting to become a general understanding of the real problems.
Does it boggle your mind that 10% of this budget is out of whack? That of $180 million plus dollars, 18 million is a deficit?
Well, why do you out of
That's
whack?
10%.
I mean, maybe, yeah, but they need the money. They need the money.
Well, you asked earlier if why can't we just slash and burn? I mean, we can slash and burn, but what that means is fired cops, fired firefighters, and fired DGS employees. Your garbage men, your road maintenance. That's the biggest part of the budget. You cannot slash and burn in a budget without deeply cutting those segments of our workforce. And
then you got the unions involved.
You're going to have the unions involved, but I mean, if the straits are that dire, there's not much that a municipality can do.
Are we in danger of going bankrupt in the city of Albany?
I don't think we're in danger of going bankrupt anytime soon, but it requires the state. It requires the state to pay its fair share for the city of Albany. I think that's the most important thing that the state needs to do for the city of Albany, and they've recognized that. All right. And they've worked towards that for the last year and this year.
Now we've had Albany Med step up to the plate and give the city some pilot money.
Yep.
How about St. Peter's?
St. Peter's has not.
Right. Why not?
Perhaps that's a topic for another show with St. Peter's for you. I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know.
You haven't been in any sort of talks
no,
or
those
anything,
those
no.
are handled by the administration. So
okay.
I know I'm the receiver of the monies and the payer of the monies.
Well, you're also an expert on the monies, and you're also
somewhat
can see what is going on and not going on, and you're privy to certain information. You're just not in a vacuum. You don't live in a bubble there.
Sometimes I do, for better and for worse.
But I just, but are there other organizations that could follow Albany Med's lead that are in the city? That,
theoretically, yes. I think St. Peter's is one of them. People point to, perhaps St. Rose, their private college that they could, but they have their own issues right now.
Yes.
SUNY can't do it of its own volition. It would have to be done statewide.
Right.
And SUNY, you think of Harriman campus and then SUNY right next to it. Those are two giant plots of real estate in the middle of the city that don't pay taxes. There might be other smaller things to do with individual nonprofits. On a smaller scale, part of the problem of being in Albany is that you have a lot of nonprofits who come here to lobby the state, and they end up owning their own building, like a nonprofit that I'm on the board of, which is Families Together in New York State. And it's a wonderful building, keeps the building up, it's terrific, but it's not paying taxes in the city.
Is that Paige Pierce or?
Paige Pierce, yes.
Paige Pierce, right? Yeah, we had her on the show.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Should go watch it.
Yep. They're doing a lot of great work these days.
Yes, no, absolutely. So you said that there was sale on property, that you mentioned earlier something about selling property or whatever, right?
Queemans. It's the plot of land that the city had purchased 10-ish years ago. I'm not quite sure when I bought it. But the original plan was to use that as the dump when our dump here, our landfill here, was going to be closed up. The DEC didn't like that idea too much, so now we're stuck with. Well, I don't know about Queemans, but I'm sure they wouldn't. But part of the plan last year from the state was for the state to take that land off the city's hands, and that hasn't come to fruition.
All right. So when we talk about sale on property, and we talk about this budget deficit that the city's facing, tell us your take on this Palace Theater deal.
I don't really have a take yet. It doesn't seem. I haven't.
Jury's still out with you?
I haven't seen the details of it. I'm not really quite sure what all the hoot and hollering's been about.
It's like $1. They want to, like the city owns the Palace Theater?
The city owns the Palace Theater. As I understand it, Mayor Corning bought it for something in the neighborhood of $75,000 or $45,000 30 or 40 years ago.
Right.
The city owns it and is obligated to maintain it.
Right.
As I understand it, there's $3 million in repairs that need to be done on it to make it to get to where it should be. Outside of that, I don't know what the rest of the plans are for this. I think one of the things that's been broached is that the city would sell it to them for a nominal fee. I know what I read in the newspapers on this.
$1.
Right.
The point is just I think Mark's saying if you can get $10 million for a building like that, it would cover at least 1 year's budget. Why are you giving it away for $1?
Perhaps, and I don't know the ins and outs of that yet, but I don't know that it actually would be. I don't think we'd be getting $10 million for it. It's my guess, but it's a building with $3 million worth of repairs is not going to be going for a whole lot of money these days. Well, especially one with a particular use like that.
No, it could. I mean, BBL Construction could have bought these things, because it wouldn't cost BBL Construction $3 million to repair it because they have all that technical know-how. But there's other people who in this area who would buy it to help aid the city, because it's good publicity for whoever buys it, and then they have their marketing and their own branding on this. It could be
theoretically, it's a possibility. That's for sure. So, but I don't really, outside of that, I don't really have much.
But as the money guy in the city, do your antennae go up and say, "Ooh, wait a minute, we have a way of, doing something positive financially for the city, and I should be looking into this so that when I'm asked, it's. I mean, do you really?" Do you get like the spidey tingle?
My experience is that these things, work themselves into a boil, work themselves out, and work themselves in a way that's the best way for these things to work out. So that includes, it's something to look at, but these are all pretty nascent plans from what I understand. So there's a lot more to be discussed afterwards. So and I'm not saying that the questions are certainly valid questions. Yeah. And it's perfectly appropriate to ask the questions.
Okay. When you were running for office, you had 3 platforms that you ran on. You said modernizing our city government, increasing efficiencies, and saving taxpayer dollars. Mm-hmm. Have you done all that?
Check, and check.
Okay. Tell us how you've modernized city government.
We have a new tax software system that's at use in my office. We went from the, I think you worked in the Senate before. You remember the black screen with the green,
yes.
The IBM command prompt. We were using that, and we still were using that for an accounting side, but we're using it on the tax side up through last year. And we have a new tax system in right now that has made things a heck of a lot easier.
Okay.
A heck of a lot easier to access information. So we are responding to inquiries much more quickly. We can actually email people their tax bills and tax receipts now, which we weren't able to do. So it's amazing. And right now we're going through the conversion to our new ERP system, which is
ERP,
Enterprise Resource System,
okay.
Which is the software, new software system for accounting side. So accounts payable, accounts receivable. And
how much? And all right, let me ask you: have your budget as treasurer gone down or up since you've taken office?
It's been about the same. You'll look in the books; it'll say that it's gone down, but that's because payroll has moved out of my office into the administration's office my first year. So it's been about the same. My employment in my office has been about the same. It's been down a little bit slightly, but my budget is almost entirely salaries.
And what is the budget for the treasurer's office?
We are about $1 million. It's around $1 million right now.
Around $1 million.
Yep.
Okay. So that wouldn't close the budget deficit if we
got
rid of you.
And one of the realities, like I said, the money,
where
the money is.
Yeah. No,
it wouldn't
okay.
be. It wouldn't be.
You wouldn't be able to collect any money, cut out the million.
Now when you also, I know. Well, the libertarians want to do away with the IRS, so maybe the libertarians would do away with Treasurer's Office. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're looking at me like I'm just going along with this.
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay. So when you talk about how you modernize city government, it sounds like that also took in increasing efficiencies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think being able to, instead of responding to someone calling in to get a copy of their tax bill or tax receipt and having to spend a minute or two looking up on the computer to take down their phone number and then go and put it in a fax machine, to fax it to them, for example, we don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
On that score, that's been one, I think, way. The technology, if I'm trying to say, the technology increase in the city have allowed us to serve the community faster.
Okay.
So.
And then
the ERP system is a major component of that.
And your third point was saving taxpayer dollars.
Yep.
So you would think if you did the first two, then the third would come along.
Surprisingly, it isn't always that way in something that is as labor intensive as my office. So what it does is it made us more efficient, but it doesn't necessarily lead immediately to actual cost savings in that capacity. However, what I have done is we had a couple of bond refinancings at the city, so we've saved about $1.25 million.
Okay.
Between last year and this year. Simple like mortgage refinancing
Sure.
for your house, what we did for our bonds.
We took advantage of the low interest rates.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. If we
But
could have waited another couple of weeks, we would have had the Brexit dip in the bond market, and that would have helped. So.
But the bonding went up, but the Wall Street raised your rating from, right? There was some change in the rating?
They changed our bond rating, but even with that, we still saved. We actually saved in our bond offering this year $1 million after the bond downgrade. We saved $1 million in our initial projections. to our final number in interest savings went from $2 million to $1 million in interest costs, so saved $1 million, even with that bond rating increase because the rates dropped so far.
So, so when you say we saved $1 million, does that check off on this deficit and say, you know, does it translate into reality?
No, well, that saves it going down the road. If we had to bond earlier with a higher interest rate, we would have had that $1 million in interest cost spread out about $100,000 a year for 10 years.
Right. I don't want people watching
That
this
wasn't
to
immediate.
think that
the bond refinancing was immediate.
Okay.
The other thing we did that was, I think, most noteworthy was we did food for fines last fall.
Right.
Where,
oh yeah, I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah,
okay,
where it was kind of an innovative thing that we had an amnesty for parking tickets, and we asked people to donate food in return for the amnesty. So they got their late fines removed off their parking tickets, gave us money for the regional food pantries, and we raised about $1.5 ton of food, and we wiped about 5,000 tickets off the books for $300,000 in revenue that we didn't have before. And the other thing we're doing right now, actually, is we've gone out to collections on our parking tickets.
Oh, really?
Yep. So we had never gone. The city had never gone to a collection
No, I
agency
know.
to go out on our parking tickets. Yeah. I hope you don't know from personal experience, Mark.
I did at one point.
And what the council actually passed last night is we're now tacking on the fee for collection of the collection agency
So I was
onto
just
the
gonna
parking
ask,
ticket. Yeah.
Really? So you're not even going to lose on that?
So we're not going to lose on that. Nope.
So I have to tell you a quick story. I hope we have time for this.
All right,
Okay.
it's a quick story.
I
We
have
time.
my license plate is NYP 150,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a
People
time
say
in
New York Press.
New York
All
Press, but there was
In English.
right, and there was a time back in the 80s where the numbers and letters were inverted on some plates.
Mhm.
You know, so there
You
was
made a mistake?
No, there was someone else in the city of Albany who had 150 NYP. Well, I had a number of tickets, and his car got booted because the city of Albany didn't know that they were different cars for some reason. And he came in screaming at me, another reporter from the
Was that
Watertown
before
Times.
2010?
Of course, it was
Okay.
in the 80s.
Okay.
When
All
they
right.
were doing it by hand. And they were saying,
Which we don't do anymore.
right,
Yeah.
and they were saying, and he was Paul Brown, he was saying, you know, when you get a ticket, you better pay it. I'm tired, I'm not going to go through this again. It took me all morning to get that boot off, and then I hid my car.
Yeah.
I knew they were after
Probably
me.
a good idea.
But no, but now we have a press zone on Hawk Street, right across from the Capitol,
Right.
and 4 cars. So since we got that, thanks to the City of Albany Traffic
Right.
Engineering Department, you know, I haven't had any tickets. So.
Good, good.
Although I was at my car on State Street during a snowstorm, and I was in my, I was at my car, the meter had expired, I opened my trunk to get the brush out to clear the snow off, and as I was doing that, they ticketed my car, even though I was there, and I was moving the
Well, now
car.
the treasurer will take care of it.
And I needed to,
Well.
I needed to deal with that issue because that was unfair.
But how much money is collected from parking tickets?
We're on pace right now for about 3.6, 3.7 million this year.
That's a lot.
Yeah, we were down to about
Okay.
2.75.
Is that only
last year.
parking tickets, or like speeding goes your
That's just
way
parking.
also?
That's just
That's
parking.
just parking.
Yeah, there's a separate budget line for those tickets, for money that's collected.
Through the police department?
Right.
How many people are employed in the treasurer's office?
We have, I think it's 17 right now.
17.
Yeah.
And how many desks? Do you have a desk for everyone in your?
We might have extra desks for everyone. We do have desks.
Because
for
there
everybody.
is someone from the treasurer's office who has a desk in the auditor's office.
Yes, that's my deputy Ken. His desk is in. That's where he was the deputy controller under the previous form of government. that we had.
Iteration,
Yeah,
right.
previous iteration.
So why don't you move him over to?
Space. We're doing
Well, I
a
just
space
asked-
study at the city.
Well, I just asked you if you had. You said you had a couple of extra desks.
I have a couple of extra desks, but they're behind the cashiers, and I don't think
Ken
Mr.
wants to
Bennett
be
really
there.
want to sit there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you can't find the placement because it's awkward for the auditors to have a treasurer employee.
I think both the auditor's office and my office would prefer to have things differently and separated better than that. But it's a matter of space and how we are able to fit it, because we'd have to cut up different things and move things around, which we're an old building, and it's very difficult to do that in the building. So we kind of go with the status quo for now, as everyone kind of deal with it for now until we can find the best.
So you're as
best way to deal with it.
uncomfortable about that as the auditor is?
I think we would all prefer to have, leaf side leaf and my side mine, and
Right.
and leave it at that. But it doesn't cause any problems, obviously. But I think you know, it's a relic of the old controller treasurer system instead of the auditor treasurer system.
And there's, okay, so you're trying to
Yeah,
your-
the city's been looking at it to do a space study to try and reform how we do use the offices in City Hall now, and it's been a little bit easier because Building and Codes has gone from City Hall up to Henry Johnson Boulevard.
But you know, you would just think that you could just say, okay, I'm moving this desk here. I mean, people watching this say, do you really need a committee and you need a study for this? Just say, I'm moving the desk here, I'm moving the desk here, I'm going to put this desk here. I mean, just do it.
That spot is the least worst spot that's available on our side of City Hall. So anything else would have to require rearranging a lot of other things, instead of taking a look at it and thinking about it at whole scale to try and deal with it. So
It's just amazing. It's just amazing. I just had to ask you about this. It was one of those minutia things. I just needed to ask you about.
That's going to turn out to be the most watched segment of this show.
But we're out of time, and we give you as a blessing over here, as a rabbi, a blessing that should be a lot more money in the city of Albany,
Thank you.
and all the deficits should be covered, and
Thank
we'll
you
talk
so
to you
much.
next year, and you say, I have a surplus, and everything is beautiful, but a lot of success.
I hope so. Thank you so much. I appreciate
right.
it. Thanks for having me.
Continued
All right.
success.